everyone, and welcome to another episode of No Capes, the indie comics talk show where myself and my guests, as a fellow comics creator, will pick a comic that we both love and talk about that for an hour. This week, we're really excited to talk about The Rocketeer, and my guest, of course, is the amazing Darick Robertson. Darick, why don't you introduce yourself and tell anyone who doesn't already know a little bit about your work?
I'm Darick. I have been drawing comics for way too long. I'm most known for co-creating The Boys and Transmetropolitan and Happy, and also I've worked on a number of creator-owned series of my own, Ballistic, Oliver, which is out now, and multiple projects for DC and Marvel, including a long run on Wolverine and work on the Punisher. I'm known for Punisher Born. So I've done a lot with a lot of really great people.
Yeah, and I think I've read almost all of it. Actually, my guest from episode 2 messaged me the other day when I posted the announcement about our episode because he was the one I talked to about Oliver.
Oh, great.
He was like, that's
Yeah.
amazing. I can't wait for that episode.
Oh, I still want people to find Oliver.
That's exactly why I wanted to talk about it on the show because I enjoy it so much and I want more people to read it.
I'm really proud of it, but it's having a hard time finding its audience, and that's a lot of that's on me because I just can't put it out as fast as it needs to be to get a momentum for a monthly audience. But then we keep running into things like we were going to do the trade, and I was going to do 5 through 8 and finish it off, and then like COVID hit, so the trade
Yeah.
came out in the midst of that, and like kind of went boop. So I'm hoping eventually it'll all get collected, and it'll be one of those things that gets discovered down the road. But
Yeah, well, it'll definitely be on this shelf once that trade comes out.
thank you. Well, it's available now. It just it's hard. I didn't see a whole lot of hoopla for its release.
Yeah, well, I didn't even know there was a trade out yet because I've just been getting the
Exactly.
single issues on Comixology. So,
Yeah, exactly. So that seems to be the obstacle to overcome with Oliver.
well, I'll
But I'm
definitely
proud.
be telling David about that today because he I think he only has the first issue and he's
I
eager
think
to
it's
read the rest of it. So,
yeah, it's just 4 issues at this point that are collected. But
yeah. And Ballistic, I
thank you for your
loved.
support. Thank you. Yeah, I'm. That's another one that it's hard to find it, but I'm really proud of it.
Tell me about it. The final issue I can't find anywhere.
A ballistic?
Yep, I've read like 1 to 4 or whatever it is,
Oh,
and
you can't find five?
nope, couldn't find it anywhere. I think I found it
Oh,
in Egyptian or something somewhere.
crazy. Well, it
But
is collected now, so you can get the ballistic collection, but
yeah,
I
well,
don't.
I'll have to find somewhere that's got it online because I know I asked my local about it and they couldn't find it. So
Yeah, I think Black Mask let it go out of print again. I don't know. They don't. I'm not really sure about that end of things, but it's out there to be found.
excellent. And for anyone who hasn't read it yet, Derek's got Hellblazer: Rise and Fall out with our
Yes.
very own Tom Taylor from
Yes.
Australia as well right now, and it's real good. So definitely go
Thank you.
check that out.
Yeah, I'm really
Um,
proud of that. I'm having a great time working with Tom, and we're in the midst of the last issue right now, and it's good stuff.
Yeah, that's going to be a really good read once it all comes out. And it's like another trade. Like I don't buy a lot of the big two anymore because there's just so much, but
Yeah.
that's definitely going to be one that I will be buying. And so yeah, today we're talking about The Rocketeer by Dave Stevens. Um, Funnily enough, I saw the movie before I read the comics as a wee boy, and I loved it.
Great
And
movie.
I love these man of adventure sort of era. You know, the Shadow, Doc Savage, and all that sort of stuff. So when you suggested this, I was like, I've been looking for an excuse to read this. Let's do
Yeah.
it.
I'd love a Rocketeer like Indiana Jones crossover. I think that would be
Yes, that would be nice.
because
Yeah, that'd be fun actually.
they exist in that same era.
Yeah. Actually, I noticed that a certain Shadow makes an appearance in this book as well.
Yeah, the Shadow make like and Dave Stevens handles it so well.
Yeah, I didn't tweak for like the first few panels, and then I was like, oh, I know who this is.
Yeah, I don't even know that he ever openly calls him the Shadow because it might have gotten into like legal stuff. But I
Yeah,
mean, it's clearly him.
I don't think he does outright name him, but especially when he does the thing with the nose,
Yeah, but I don't think he does the red scarf at any point, if I remember correctly.
I don't think so. Just the jacket across the face.
Yeah,
But I was like, yes.
nice subtlety.
Yeah, because I loved the resurgence of the Shadow, Doc Savage, and all of those characters having their shared universe that came out in the early 2000s, mid 2000s.
Yeah,
Um, I can't remember which press did it, but it was like 2010 to 2013 ish. They had a
yeah.
run.
Wasn't like the Phantom part of that?
I don't remember. There was Doc Savage, the Shadow, the Avenger with the malleable face.
Okay.
Um, I can't remember if the Phantom makes an
Nothing,
appearance or
nothing
not.
more entertaining than two guys talk about something they can't quite remember.
Yeah, but anyway, if that was along these same sort of veins, and I would love to see them get together with the Rocketeer. Is where I was leading
Yeah.
with that. That would be a really cool story. But yeah, we've got. I've got the collected edition digital version here. Um, 8 chapter adventure. It says. So I'm not sure if that's all of it.
I'm not sure either. I know he did two. He did. I got my hard copy right here. So
I
he
love
he
that
did.
cover.
It's so beautiful. And it's got in mine. It has. Well, he only did a handful of the stories though. Like there's not a great deal of content here that is Dave Stevens that he wrote and he drew,
Yeah.
but there's the main adventure that kind of encapsulates a lot of what they did in the movie, and then there's a follow-up adventure where he like follows Betty who runs off with that photographer, and then he's
Yes.
in
Yeah.
New
Well, this is
York.
definitely the same story. Then you've just got a nicer cover than me. Yeah,
Yeah,
because it just.
this is the IDW edition, and it's just got these beautiful chapter breaks.
Yeah, this one I think I've got is like the re-released IDW edition, so they gave it a new cover.
Okay. Yeah, I love this one. It's got a little spot gloss on it, and it's good stuff.
Yeah, I love the Bulldog Cafe, just straight up on the
Yeah,
first page.
in my kitchen, I actually have a cookie jar of that
Oh, that's
because
awesome.
I got back in the day when they put out, like when they thought, I think they believed, I think Disney thought Rocketeer was going to be like a merchandising boom for them, and it didn't really quite hit that. It's like, I think anybody, there was a, seems to be a marketing think that was going on at the time that because Batman hit real big in '89 and they sold a ton of merchandise that any comic book property they adapted would have the same effect, not recognizing how iconic Batman is and how unknown the Rocketeer was. You know?
Yeah, yeah, I know what you mean. But see, I was so much more excited about the Rocketeer at the time than the Batman movies at the time. Just
It's a
something,
better,
yeah,
for
something
me.
about it.
Yeah, it's a better film, I think. Joe Johnston, he'd go on to do Captain America: The First Avenger.
Yeah, yeah, and the thing I immediately noticed when I was reading this, like, first page is really good. Second page with the frying pan to the head, just the dynamism and the detail of expression in the
Yes,
artwork.
I'm a huge Dave Stevens fan. I have been since the beginning of my career, and I still, to this day, I keep that copy of the Rocketeer on my board just to pick it up for inspiration, study how he does line work, get ideas for how to lay out a page, what I can do a little bit different because he was doing something so unique and doing it all old school, like none of that. Like there was zero computer help when he was
Mm,
creating stuff. This is all done with Zipatone. And I saw his originals. I knew Dave Stevens a little bit, and he'd be at a lot. He was local, and he would show up at a lot of conventions that I would do. So I talked to him often, and just he was a really nice man, really encouraging, and I absolutely loved his work. He was a total gentleman, and but he always had his original art for sale and that stuff along with him at conventions. And this is back when conventions were pretty small affairs. so we talked for a while, and I would look through his work, but it was so amazing just to see his original. They were so clean. They'd have like the work was evident. You'd see white out and things like that he would do, but he would use it strategically to paint back into things,
Mm.
and all of those tones, like he was doing that with actual zipatone, where he'd have to cut it out and paste it down. Like you couldn't do it with a computer effect because there was no computer effect.
Yeah, I really want to learn how to use that stuff traditionally at some point, but it's so hard to
It's
get
hard
in
to
Australia.
it's hard to get period now. It's almost like extinct. I do a lot of tone work in my original art now, but I do it via Photoshop because I have a tone that I can drop in
Yeah,
onto
that's
my
it.
original black and whites. I still work black and white, on original paper, but I don't. But then I scan it in and I add effects.
Yeah, that was how I did
After.
this page as well. I did it all pencil on paper, and then when I inked it, I got a nice selection of screen tone brushes.
Yes.
Yeah, and I've been having a blast learning how to use those because
Yeah, that's
rather than
awesome.
just having the one sheet, I can just use it like I would a normal brush.
Oh, that's cool. I may have to hit. Do you do that via Photoshop or
I
Illustrator?
use Clip Studio, but they've got the brushes for both.
Okay, I might have to hit you up, figure out like how I can get a hold of those brushes. I
Yeah,
usually
I'll
just
send you some links. They're
drop
really
tone in, and
affordable.
then I use my eraser to
Mm.
kind of carve it out.
Well, they're actually in this kit. They even have a half tone eraser, so you can drop a
Oh,
solid color and then brush out the screen tone shapes out of it.
well, I'm gonna have to a separate conversation.
Yeah, no, but exciting. But yeah, just that first panel with the where he's getting hit in the head with the frying pan, the richness of that red background, and as you said, when you actually mentioned to me that you referenced Dave Stevens to this day, as I read through the book, I could see like the roots of that. I sort of note a lot of the similarities in influence of like, oh yeah, okay, I see this from Transmet, and
Yeah, no, I mean that's like, yeah, I know this is the panel you're talking about with him
yeah,
getting hit with, and that's very much like it's still. I love his storytelling and the way he would make things pop and the expressions he like. The expressions they're cartoony, but then they work within the the realm of the story so well that they don't feel cartoony. They feel
yeah.
natural.
I love the I think it's the third page where they introduce the Rocketeer name, and
Yes,
it's got
and I
like
like
the just that little one long bit at the top with the photo of him in the suit and the cars running across.
it's such an amazing layout and the way he integrates the title into the page.
Um,
And the storytelling is happening nonetheless because the cars are racing across the top of the title.
exactly, and actually, I didn't notice that the first read through too much. I just was like really taking it all in, but now taking it in more closely and talking about it, I can see how that is 100% tied into the next panel.
Yes, I mean it brings you right into the story.
Yeah.
He didn't throw anything away in that regard. I like that, and then also like his level of detail and attention to historical accuracy was is just gorgeous.
Yeah.
The way he draws his old planes and old telephones and all of these props, like everything looks and feels like it's right out of that era.
It really does. I had to sort of double check and remember when this was all produced because it was so well done and actually
Yeah,
like it felt natural to that time.
it looks like they may have recolored this for this edition too, like which I would hope that they would do because they didn't have the coloring effects when these were being published as
Yeah.
flop.
Yeah, I think they did do a digital remaster or something.
It's gorgeous. I love this. I love this book so much.
Yeah. I love that panel of Cliff down the bottom with the yellow background. When the cops are arresting the two guys trying to steal his plane.
Yeah,
Like just that yellow background with the green shirt, but also the expression of the face.
yeah, that the one in the middle there where
Yeah,
it's
I love
yeah,
his close-ups.
yeah, they're great. He used to model his stuff on himself. Like there's photographs of him like with the phone in his hand and things like that where he would get photos of himself as Cliff performing, and then he would draw from those and work them into the comic.
That's cool. I
He
always love when an artist uses themselves for their reference.
Yeah, it was. I used to do it for Wolverine. I used to like have a mirror and some photographs of me just making Wolverine face. I grew my mutton chops at the time too, just so I can see how they lay on the face at different angles, because they were always so unrealistic looking. And a lot of the artists would draw them like they'd be like he put gel in them or something. And I was like,
Yes.
Wolverine wouldn't bother with any of that. Like Wolverine, it's just like he'd lop his own hair off to keep it from getting too long with his, and just run his
Yep.
hand through it. Put on a hat or something. I don't think he'd be too bothered with the way he looks.
Yeah, I've found that with a few runs on Wolverine over the years that they get a little bit anime with the tips of his mutton chops.
Yeah, or his hair is really super sculpted. And I'm
Yeah.
like, that's not Wolverine to me.
It's like, I mean, yes, the helmet.
It's out of character.
Yeah.
I also think Wolverine's costume is the dumbest thing in the world too, because, wait, his secret identity. There's another short guy with claws popping out of his hands, but he doesn't have a mask on, so it couldn't be the same 5'3" little hairy stocky guy with
Right.
claws releasing from his hands,
Whose hair happens to be permanently stuck in the shape of that other guy's mask.
which wouldn't fit under that mask.
Yeah, I've always thought it funny that they give him the helmet hair in the shape of the mask, but when you look at the mask itself,
no, it's just
there's
like
not.
a flat.
Yeah, it's a skull cap with the black bits running backwards.
Bringing it back to Rocketeer, one of my favorite scenes that they actually did a good job of recreating in the movie is when Peavy is designing his helmet.
Oh yeah, I can't remember that from the movie, to be honest. I haven't watched it for a while, but now that we're talking about it, I'm probably going to go get the DVD out of the cupboard and watch it tonight.
Yeah, do you have Disney Plus? It's on Disney Plus.
I don't.
But it's a good one. It's worth watching again.
It is. I actually like the page before that where Peavy says he'll to go get the helmet, and he just looks so happy with himself.
Yeah. It's kind of like he's a very parental figure, and I think like Cliff's getting away with getting to keep the rocket pack.
Yeah, he's got that very chuffed with himself, I'm getting up to mischief sort of phase.
Yeah. I love that word chuffed. It's very we don't say chuffed here, but I love it. Yeah, I'm looking at this great. I love this panel here too, just the way he uses a silhouette.
Oh yeah, that actually caught my attention on my first read through. I love that, because if there's one thing I struggle with as an artist, it is knowing where to put black in my palette.
Well, sometimes it's just a matter of following your instinct. But if I can give you some advice, one of the things you want to look for is how it helps with your composition to guide the eye. Is where you put your blacks. And actually in a weird way, he's sort of breaking an Eisner rule, where he's got him running into the panel that we've just exited. So if he had flipped that, it would actually guide the eye better on the panel page. But I'm not one to spend a lot of time criticizing Dave Stevens.
Yeah, and I don't even mind that either, because I didn't even notice that he was running in the opposite direction, because
his body actually kind of pulls the eye in the right direction.
Exactly. Like the fence and then the leg are still leading into that other frame.
Right, and but it's the rule of thumb is like, things should move left to right. But, rules are made to be broken too. There's another great use of the silhouette is how he builds up to the debut of character in full costume. But it's like as he's pulling stuff out of the trunk, he's silhouetted there.
Yeah, that's the panel I've got up right now too, and just
And this the natural motions and the way he did clothing folds.
Yes.
Like I love the way he's strapping on that rocket and ties it to his back, and a close up of him through the lens of the mask or the helmet. It's just freaking out and then sweat dropping, like you feel it.
Yeah, it's
a big deal that he's gonna go flying. And then again, you go back into that gorgeous lettering that he did. He did this all by hand.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite panels in this trade, actually. That one where he's first flying off and the body just blurs into the yellow of the jet stream, and
Yeah. And this is a good scene that they recreated for the film as well. Like this is almost accurate. This is almost like verbatim.
yeah, I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch the film now because I haven't watched it for a couple of years, and it's still one of my favorites.
Yeah, this is it's really good. It shows him trying to like just get the hang of the how to use the rocket pack, and then also trying to take over the plane.
Yeah,
Like they did this whole sequence really well in the movie.
I
It
love
was
that.
a shame that they had to change Betty to Jenny for the because Betty Page didn't want to be associated with the film.
Ah, that makes sense.
So they couldn't have cast anybody better than Jennifer. Um, blanking on her last name. Big famous actress Jennifer.
That's a good question. Hang on.
Having a brain fart.
I love the design of the classic rocket pack in the comics too. It's so different to what they used in the film, but
Yeah, it's more simplistic. It's like one big jet as opposed to two
yeah,
side by jets. I
and the
really
little
love the movie a lot though.
yeah,
It's sleek.
it is. It's really nice, and the little gold rings around this one in the comic are really nice. Jennifer Connelly.
Connolly, that's right. It's just like just
Oh man, yeah, it's been so long.
memory. She was in the Hulk.
Oh yeah, it's been so long since I watched this. I forgot that Alan Arkin was in it.
Yeah, he's great. Perfect casting for Peavy.
Yeah,
That's one of the things that makes that movie really work. It's just an incredibly good cast. Everybody looks right, they sound right, their tone's right. But yeah, Jennifer Connelly was a great substitute for Betty Page.
yeah, no, that's a really good choice.
She was gorgeous, like in her well, she still is, but she was in her prime.
Billy Campbell. Have I seen him in anything else recently? Oh yeah,
Yeah, he's done a lot of stuff.
yeah.
He was on TV in a show where he played a senator that I was watching. I think it was called The Killing.
Oh yeah, I just went past that actually. Yep.
That wasn't that long ago, or at least doesn't feel that long ago.
Yeah.
I have no sense of time anymore.
Yeah, time is an illusion right now.
Time is completely irrelevant. Being a father and on top of that, and, living in COVID.
Yeah.
These little things that I just absolutely love is just as an artist, like just how good that tie is. That tie blowing in the wind right there.
Yes. Yeah, and when we first meet Betty in the comics too, just the detail, like the fall of the skirt, like the way that the folds are drawn into that.
The detail on the stockings.
Yeah. The shine in the hair.
Yeah, I love that. I study that all the time.
Yeah, like that kind of use of black ink in forms and stuff still eludes me, and I admire the heck out of it whenever I see it well done like that.
Yeah, he was a real master. His line work was impeccable. Oh, here's the panel I was talking about. This is the one that I know that Dave posed for.
Oh, cool.
There's a photograph of him doing that exact thing.
Again, another like the just the panels he does as the intros to each chapter.
Yes.
I just love them. Like the one here of the Rocketeer was standing with his hands on his hips at the start of chapter 3.
Yeah, that's great. He was like sharing space, if I remember correctly, with like another comic when I think it was Pacific Comics that put this out originally. I have these original comics somewhere too in my collection.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
So I've been a fan for years. I was picking this stuff up in the '80s when he was doing. I had his posters. He did a bunch of posters that I had on my wall too. Just loved his work.
Oh man, I would actually love to have like a Dave Stevens Rocketeer poster.
Yeah, he did other stuff too. Like he just did like Jungle Girl, and
oh cool.
They were just like you basically buy the posters just to have Dave Stevens art.
Yeah. I love the panel on that page actually at the start of chapter 3, where he's kicking that guy in the face.
Punt.
Yeah.
Get lost. Yeah, like it's funny for me. Like I'm more into the panel right before it.
Oh yeah, no, that with the hands.
Yeah, the hands and him, like his eye, like the emotion that the suspense that he's building there by putting that eye, like oh, like he's in trouble. I
Yep.
also love the lighting on that panel where he's pulling the gun in the second to last panel.
Yes. Yeah, the lighting is fantastic on that. And I did on mentioning on that panel you're talking about with the hands and the eye. That is something that blows me away every time we get a close up of the Rocketeer,
Yeah.
and just the way he draws the eyes through the lenses.
Yes.
But like it's rendered so you can
Right.
feel the glass.
That was where he would use the white ink and go back in.
Yeah.
Like it's the reflection on top. It's because he went in with the white ink and painted back over the lens. The another good example of how to use black to assist your composition is down here in this silhouette.
Yeah. Yep.
If you notice the whole composition of the page, this actually ends it and it cornerstones it, so you end on that beat and it kind of captures the whole page composition.
Yeah. That's a really good point actually. And it does. It feels really final
And
there.
it counteracts the big bold action pose up in the chapter 3 marker.
Yeah. I'm also just gonna say quietly, I really want that jacket.
Yeah, you can buy them. They're available online.
I'm gonna have to.
You got to dig for them, but they actually, like real leather makers, do make that. It's called the Rocketeer jacket.
Uh,
I've always wanted, because I was showing you my helmet. I always wanted to get the backpack and the
yeah.
jodhpur, but then I'm not in the shape that I was when I got the helmet years ago. So I don't think I'd look as good as Cliff Secord. I'd look like a pudgy version of him trying to pull off that outfit.
Hey, any Rocketeer is a good Rocketeer in my book.
Well, speaking of, if you jump ahead to like chapter 5, there's one of my favorite illustrations in the book that always stands out to me, and it's this other Rocketeer, the guy that I guess
Oh yeah.
agent who comes armed. But I love this panel. Like that's still one of the greatest things in this whole series.
Yes, I loved that. I'm just gonna try to skip forward to that so I can find it.
Yeah, right here.
There he is. Yeah.
This guy here is amazing. Like that's an example of him using the zipatone and just the way he just knew how to crosshatch. And look at the detail in that guy's outfit. Like he's got the stitching on the side.
Yeah. That lacing up the ribs and the stitching on all the sides of the belts.
And the depth of the leather. Like you can feel the depth of the leather in those where the studs are going through. It's just such great detail. I mean, I still can't get over how just meticulous this guy was.
Yeah, and the shock in Secord's face in the car in the top panel.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like one of the few faces that doesn't look as consistent as a number of the other Cliff reactions. But I can't. Again, I don't get hung up criticizing this work too much.
No, I know what you mean. And the panel where he's throwing the helmet on, I think it's the next page.
Down the last panel.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like the motion. I love that shot to the close up of the broom-handled Mauser.
Yeah, and the shadows in, like the black inks in the jacket.
Yeah,
that really blows me away.
That's the kind of stuff that I study. That's why I keep this close to my board. And on the next page over to him falling through the sky, like
yeah, I'm looking at that right now as well.
And the way he centered the whole thing with that circular panel right above it.
Yeah, I love that. I love fun use of panels.
Yeah, I like the lightning bolt breaks and then the...
Yeah. When I talked to Ted Brandt and Rose Stein a couple of episodes ago, and we did Witch Hat Atelier, and it's actually got a lot of really, really interesting use of panel borders and stuff, and the way it uses black inks and things, because it's a manga.
Yeah.
But like there was a page in that where I actually laughed out loud when I turned to it because this one panel was just so clever. It wasn't a funny part of the story or anything. I was just so shocked by this one drawing. It was a panel of one of the main characters like leaning on a table, but the way they'd drawn it, they had his hand cupping the edge of the table, but that was actually the panel border of the page.
That's cool. Yeah, I always like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and it was just so well drawn and just so cleanly executed. I couldn't believe it. So, like, seeing that sort of stuff in this book as well is really fun.
Yeah, this was very ahead of its time in a lot of ways.
I'm loving the stunt plane as well, with the P-26. Yeah. The detail in that plane, even though that there's so much of it in shadow underneath, you can still feel how much there is to it.
Yes. You're talking about this one here?
No, actually, the page before that, I think. A couple of pages before that, where we first see that little blue and red and yellow plane.
Oh, yes. Yeah, then it appears more in the next sequence.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like his ability to draw that stuff so authentically was really it's really a love letter to that era of aviation.
Yeah. And yeah, all the planes are just so incredibly detailed, but just that panel really strikes me because that's again sort of what I'm feeling with the black inks is like there's so much black on that plane, but it doesn't feel hidden.
Right.
Like you can still feel all of the volume and the depth and the shape, and
I would actually argue that that's why you can feel it.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel when I've tried to experiment with it myself, it is a trap to accidentally put too much black on and lose that.
Yeah, the way he's did the underside of that wing there is just incredible.
Yeah.
It's just the detail and the insignia and stuff, but it doesn't lose any of the sense of depth or shadow or light source.
Right, and the more you look at it, the more you can see.
Shadow too below it is incredible.
Yeah. The more you look at that plane, the more you can see just very, very subtle parts where he hasn't put black in the middle of those big chunks of black.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like just behind the wing, there's a tiny little bit of blue under like the zipper tone or something, and that just helps with it to keep that depth, and that's fantastic.
Fantastic. This is another great too. Like his left to right composition on this page works perfectly.
Yeah. And in this page where we see Betty in the photo shoot as well, just like you can really see, like he's really captured the look of Betty Page.
Yes.
And of the pin-up art of the era.
Oh yeah, her on the couch there is just right out of the era.
But yeah, on the next page after that, where we start getting the good shots of that experimental plane.
Yeah, that crazy plane. I love that plane. Especially when it gets to the interiors as well.
Yeah. Just having a look at it. I think
the imagination that went into this as well is just incredible.
Yeah.
I was thinking about him climbing into a moving plane and is jumping onto a plane because his jetpack gives out.
Right.
There's a great panel. I just love that use of space.
Yes. Yeah. And I love like how there's obvious insectile inspiration for the design of that plane.
Yes.
And I'm trying to pick it. I think it's a grasshopper.
Like a dragonfly. Yeah, it looks like a dragonfly.
Yeah, because I've done the same thing with a farming drone in one of the pages I'm drawing at the moment. I've taken like an actual dragonfly for reference and then broken it down into segments to create a propeller-flown drone.
That's cool.
And I just love seeing that in other people's work.
Yeah. Yeah, it's remarkable to me that you're reading, something flying, but you get the sense of being out in the air, and you get the sense of the motion and the distance.
Yeah.
And these are not, these are multiple panel pages too, which is the other thing. Is like,
there's
a lot. 1, 2, 3. There's like 6, 7 panel pages all throughout.
Yeah, me and DB were talking about that with Crowded last week as well. The Crowded team use a lot of panels, but it doesn't feel superfluous.
Yeah.
Or crowded, so to speak.
Crowded
it doesn't feel
hard. getting their stuff to breathe when you've got this many panels per page is not easy.
Yeah, exactly. Um, but yeah, with we found we were discussing it with the crowded stuff. A lot of the pages that have lots of panels on them are like there's a lot of dialogue happening, and they really use it to convey the actual feel and emotion of the conversation that's being had. And I didn't even notice how many panels there were until we were talking about it because it felt so natural, which is kind of like this. It feels like a real action sequence
Yeah.
straight out of of a film of the time.
Yes.
And so it feels natural to have this many panels because you couldn't really convey what's happening here in less.
I mean, he could, but he managed to do it in a way that it brings the rhythm of the whole story to bear.
Yeah.
Like he goes when he crashes through the wall here of Harold's garage and then like passes out. Just that little sequence of him passing out is terrific. But then when you turn the page, him waking up is that's just genius. Like he's got this like coming out of a haze, and then Peavy is like in this weird swirl.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to get that page to load right now, but I do remember it from when I read through it. I also like the panel on the page following that where he's yelling into the phone,
Yes.
and like, there's so much tension in his muscles, and you can
Yeah,
see the
that's what I was saying. Those are the ones that Dave posed for himself.
yeah, and like
I like like old people look like old people. Like they don't. He doesn't
yeah,
just know how to be one kind of person. He can draw all kinds of different people,
yeah,
including
that's it.
this weird kind of like oafish guy with the wide head, the bruiser.
Yes,
He gets great expressions on him.
he really does. I loved that guy's faces every panel.
I almost feel like if he drew Wolverine, that's what Wolverine would look like if Dave Stevens had drawn him.
Yeah, that would be cool. Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that too, with like the old people looking like old people, and something I've found seen that people have a hard time with sometimes is children.
Yep.
I've seen a few people draw Damian Wayne, and he looks 22 when he's supposed to be 11.
Yeah, I'm having that trouble right now. I have to draw this kid for Hellblazer. So.
Yeah. I saw something the other day where one was supposed to be like a literal toddler, and it was like an actual adult face that they just taken all of the hair off and put on a toddler's body. It was very confusing.
Yes, it's always disturbing. It reminds me of like when I'd go to Europe and go to the old Italian museums and see these old paintings of, the baby Jesus, but baby Jesus just like he's like a freak show in half of those paintings. Like no concept of how to do a baby's body.
Yeah.
So they're kind of like weird miniature adults on Mary's lap.
Yeah.
Now I'm just looking at how awesome he draws Butch the bulldog.
Oh yeah, I love the Butch scenes. I'm looking at the panel where Cliff is in the fuel room and he spills some of the acid on the floor.
Oh yeah, I was just looking at that.
And it's just the bubbles and the feeling of it spreading out across the floor. Again, and like that's a tiny panel on that whole page, but that drew my attention and kept it.
Yeah, I was just looking at that. Where is that? After he kicks the guy.
Yeah, after he escapes the bruiser and runs into that room where the jetpack is being fueled up.
Yeah, I just had that page. Where'd it go? Oh, here's the. Okay, I went too far back. Oh, so this is not what we're talking about, but yeah, I have to show another great use of black and framing and
Oh yes, I love that panel.
POV, and that was a cliffhanger, no pun intended, for that issue.
Yeah.
We didn't know who that dude was going to be until we got the next issue.
Yeah, I like that.
There it is. Yeah, like drops acid on the floor.
right? And it's such a small part of that page. But just that and the details on the boot really held my attention before I could
Yeah,
even
that,
leave.
yeah, he didn't slack on anything. That's just why these books came out so slowly. But man, so for me though, like that's the we were talking about Oliver earlier, and that's kind of what I'm trying to do with Oliver. It's like I know I'm never going to be able to make it a monthly book at this point, so it's like I just want it to be a beautiful collection because half the stuff that I did, years ago when I was like scrambling and staying awake all night to meet deadlines, people are just reading his collections now, like 20 years later. So all they see is like where I had to cut corners because I had to get that monthly deadline met. I just
I
like
know what you mean, and I haven't even worried about how long it's been between issues of Oliver because it's been so pleasant to sit down and look at while I'm
oh,
reading it. So
I mean,
like
I put an incredible amount of detail and love into those in all four issues.
yeah, and you can feel it. We spent a lot of time talking about those little details and stuff
Thank
in that episode. Um, so like I know exactly what you mean, and yeah, don't stress.
Yeah,
It's so
it's funny. It's like if anything, it just reminds me looking at this stuff like, oh, it's like this is what it's like when, you can go back through these and just treasure the work. It doesn't matter that this came out in the 80s. It doesn't matter when it was published. It doesn't matter how often it came out. What matters is the final product that you get to hold in your hands years later and appreciate.
right, and that's the thing with this book as well is you wouldn't tell that it came out that long ago.
No, it's more impressive that it did.
Yeah, there's a lot of superhero books that came out around that time that look like they came out around that time.
Yes,
You know,
exactly. And
they
way too
followed.
many.
Yeah, they
Nothing
followed what was fashionable.
like yeah, Adam Hughes was the only person I knew who was like drawing on this level at all at the same time. Like just with that kind of level of detail and composition and feel for expressions. I'm jumping ahead to one of the New York spots, but again, use of black, use of shadow.
Oh yeah, yep. I'm gonna find that one. Oh, actually, before I get to that one, the page I've got up for everyone to see right now is where the cops shoot Secord as he's flying over New York.
Oh wait, okay, I got him leaving in the plane, and then I got the beginning of the New York adventure. Then I
Yeah,
got
just there. It's like the middle panel.
hold on, I got. Oh yeah, that's amazing. Was shooting him with the Tommy gun.
Yeah,
Yeah, I love that because like my instincts, if I was drawing the same page with this many panels, like I would have had a hard time cropping him at the knees the way that Stevens did because
yeah.
I'd be afraid it would throw off the read. But it totally works, and I think that spotlight is what makes it work. It pulls the spotlight behind him, pulls you down into the panel you're supposed to read next.
It does, and just like the way that panel's done with so much black, so it doesn't have like the border around it
Yeah.
specifically as well, um, really makes it feel like a shock because it
Yes.
stands out against the other panels, and you can feel that oh shit, this is supposed to be something shocking.
Yeah, and him falling into that like aerial view sky at night sky is just amazing too.
Yeah,
He hand drew all that as well, and yet the figure doesn't get lost in it. Of course, it's Betty's dream.
yeah.
Ah, such good stuff.
Oh,
Even 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 the character that he gives that cop that's shooting him with the Tommy gun is like
right?
the cop has so much character. Like
Yeah,
something out of a movie.
he really does. I'm looking at the panels right now where Cliff first confronts Betty in the bar.
Yeah, that's another scene that they did really well in the movie.
Yeah, and just here with the that suit is almost entirely black, but the strategic parts that he's done with the light and shadow on it.
Oh, this is are you talking about the shot where he's got the lighter in his hand?
Yes, yes,
Yeah, he's breaking a rule there too that I was taught by my editor. Like, if you're going to break panel, make sure it's breaking panel into the panel you're supposed to read next, because it can throw your eye down into the panel you're not supposed to be reading. But
mm,
it looks so good, I don't care. I get you. I get the feeling too. Dave was probably doing well with the hand and didn't want to like
Yep.
readjust, fit it in the panel. But it's great.
Yeah, and I just love what he's done. Like the strategic little pieces of light on that
Yep,
solid chunk of black give it all the depth that it needs.
it's true.
Like I would have a really hard time doing that the way that I work because I at the moment I'm like so focused on drawing the thing accurately that it feels weird to submerge so much of it in ink.
Yes. Well, it's all part of the tone too. You're supposed to be in a low lit nightclub.
Yeah.
You know, he's doing that lighting across the board. Like the way he's lit Cliff's face there, as well as the suit.
Yeah.
It's interesting too, because Betty doesn't have as much shadow on her, and throughout the rest of the scene, the shadow seems to kind of lighten up. But for the dramatic effect of Cliff with that lighter, it works totally.
Yeah, and then the dynamism of this the punch up in the bar.
Yes, and then looking at the detail too of this old club.
Yeah. And the detail in the hands where
Yes,
that
so
where
your hand,
yeah,
excellent.
where he grabs Cliff's fist before he can punch again.
Yes, it's excellent. The knuckles and the veins in the hand, like it's just master class.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
Lamont in
Yeah.
action there page.
I think this was exactly where I realized. I think I laughed out loud again here too. Is that next page, the first frame where you can see Lamont in profile? I was like, oh crap, yep.
I like the circle panel in the corners.
Yes.
Gives it like that intense stare, and he cropped him right at the nose, so it's the shadow.
Yeah, as soon as I saw those two panels, I was like, oh yeah, I know who this is. This is great.
Without saying who it is.
And that's the thing as well, is that like the things that a lot of comics sometimes struggle with these days as well still is being able to give the characters such a 100% iconic look and stay faithful to that.
Yes.
So that you can do this. This character doesn't even have to be named and you know who it is.
I'm afraid your viewers are just looking at me looking down at my book. There's another great page layout where he uses
Yes.
Betty as the whole frame
Yes.
aspect.
I did love that page. There's so much detail, and the detail in Betty's dress.
You love that. You love that Betty page.
He's just he draws it so well. There's so much detail, and just he really captures like every page where she gets a special portrait.
Yeah.
Really like encapsulates the art and the focus of that era.
His sense of anatomy too, like just
Yeah.
the subtlety of folds. She's got these little folds under her armpit there.
Yep, and the musculature.
On her back, and that's a very hard angle to draw it back.
It really is.
And he captures it so well. It's dramatic and it's emotive, and yet it's like just a dynamic, like pin-up panel.
Yeah, that's it. There's just so much detail and so much obvious care put into the drawing as well.
Yeah, I mean that's what's amazing though is like he puts as much care into like the next page, like you got this ship at a harbor, and
Yeah.
again a tiny panel of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 panels, and yet there's like an interior of a plane, an exterior of a plane, exterior of a ship. If I was reading this script, I'd be angry. I'd be like, I put all that on one page, but he did it.
Yep. Yeah. And the next page with
It's almost like Rockwell, like the way
yes,
he's.
that's exactly.
There's like a Norman Rockwell feel to that.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was about to mention was that panel.
And then also the great stuff with him lighting that match, and then Lamont showing up and that great freak out expression.
Yes.
Terrific.
But yeah, I've noticed in a lot of hero comics at the moment, they can't capture what they do with Lamont here. And like we were saying, like he's so recognizable immediately. There's no question that is the Shadow.
Yeah, well, it's everything how he lights him. Like this panel here, that's like a total Shadow thing. If you know the Shadow at all.
Yeah.
The big freaky eyes and the heavy shadows. on his face.
There's been so many times in just the last 2 years even that I've been reading some Marvel and DC books and I'm like, oh, that's supposed to be Tony.
Oh, really?
Oh, that's Bruce. Okay.
Oh, that's too bad.
Because like they just kind of get into generic handsome guy when they're not in their costumes.
Yeah, that happens a lot. A lot of times people just want to be drawing the costumes. They don't put as much thought into the people underneath them.
Yeah, and there's been a few times where people have drawn Peter Parker and I'll be like, wait, oh, this conversation is Peter and Mary Jane. I was wondering who she was talking to.
That's a big no-no. You should always know what's going on the page. It shouldn't be a mystery.
Yeah, it's not too often that I come across that, but sometimes it's just that. It's like they don't...
Well, there was something kind of lost in the 90s with that era that sort of like replaced dynamism for storytelling.
Yeah.
And what you got, I came up through an era when, this was king, Watchmen was king, Frank Miller and what he was doing with Daredevil and then Dark Knight, like that was the essence of, it was all about Hardy's story. David Mazzucchelli, great artist, and and then in the 90s it got all about this kind of flashy pinup stuff that sort of dominated. Like it didn't matter what the story was as long as every page had like a character in a costume screaming and running at the panels. And I drew a lot of that stuff too because that's what the soup du jour was. But I long to get back to really good storytelling, which is what I kind of ended up doing with Transmetropolitan. I sort of got out of that rut of doing splashy superhero stuff and try to get back more into something more substantial, and that's where Transmet came from.
Yeah, well, that's really nice. And actually, the one person I do know does this well of making the characters iconic and recognizable at the moment is Ryan Stegman's work on Venom.
Oh, he's great. Yeah, he's terrific.
You take one look at Eddie Brock in the current Venom run with Donny Cates, and like that's Eddie Brock. It doesn't matter what he's wearing at any point in the comic. It's like, yeah, that's Eddie.
Yeah, that's called people character.
Yeah, and he looks just like, Eddie from the 90s when Venom was doing like Lethal Protector and all of that. But, in a more modern style. And I really appreciate when that's it. Like the really essence of that character is there and you can take one look and go, that's Peter Parker, that's Tony Stark.
Yeah, in my opinion, that's what the job was. I tried to do that with boys and give everybody a very distinctive look.
Yeah, it's not just about handsome guy with a little trimmed goatee equals Tony Stark.
No, it's like why does Robert Downey Jr. look very different than Chris Evans?
Yeah, exactly. There's been a few times where people have drawn Tony as this real square-headed, huge sort of guy when he's not in his suit, and I'm like, well, Tony is fit and handsome, but he shouldn't be ripped. Yeah.
He relies on a suit for his superpowers. Hey, I hate to break it to you, but I think I'm at my time limit.
Yeah, I was about to say we should be pretty much approaching. There was just one last panel I wanted to mention before we finished up here, which is actually just the start of that next chapter where he's talking to Lamont. And it's the little circle panel at the bottom right when they're in the room with the auto gyro.
Yes, with the eyeball.
Yeah, and on the other side, that little surprised expression.
Yeah, and the uplighting on him right there.
Yes.
That's an example of like why this whole sequence works so well for Lamont. Because they keep because Stevens kept the uplighting and the lighting consistent throughout this whole scene. Like it's really heavy shadows and separate light sources happening throughout this whole sequence, and it's just brilliant.
Yeah.
Only 2 pages, like it's the crux of the whole issue. Yeah, Dave was a genius. Absolute genius.
Yeah, I'll definitely be coming back to this a lot more, and I definitely want to get a copy of it to have on the shelf, because
if you can get this this IDW version with the spot gloss, it's got everything, and it's such nice paperweight and holds up real well. It's just a pleasure to flip through and feels good in your hands. And they also included a lot of other stuff like his pinup stuff that you don't see too often, like these were posters.
Yeah. I would
So
love that poster. I'm going to try to track one of them down.
these were both posters too. I had this on a T-shirt. I used to wear that on a T-shirt.
That's cool. That's a great design.
Yeah, it's really just Chris. He was just something else. Only the good die young.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for joining me for the show today. It's been a pleasure.
I hope somebody besides you and I enjoys watching this, because I feel like that was very self-indulgent for
No,
me.
I really feel like every episode is a little bit different in what we end up choosing to focus on. Like last week we focused a lot on the storytelling as well as the art, like especially like the story specifically, not just the way the art tells the story on Crowded.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting, and it was a really interesting thing to focus on. But with this, there is so much about the artwork to talk about. The story itself is great as well, but there is just
it was just sort of a very a very special moment within all of comics that this thing exists the way that it does. There's nothing else quite like it.
Yeah.
From that, I mean, nobody was interested in doing stories about, airplanes in the 30s for starters, and but for him to take this, it's just such a love letter to that era, and he captures so much of what makes that era cool that it holds up and stands the test of time. Even though he's no longer with us, and that movie kind of came and went, nobody cared that much about the film. The Rocketeer remains special in a lot of people's hearts, and in a special place, because it was done with such a labor of love that love comes.
That's exactly right. I've been a fan since I was the smallest I can remember, but I've never read it until now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, thank you very much. If you want to give everyone a quick shout where they can find you on the internet.
I'm on Twitter. I'm very political, so if you don't like politics, you might not like following me too much. But I'm on Twitter at Darick R. We got an election happening, you might have heard. And I have a website, DarickRobertson.com, that you can go see some archive stuff. And if you need to get a hold of me about original art or commissions or things like that, DarickRobertson.com is the best place to do that at.
Excellent. I will definitely be linking those in the description for those of you who are watching as well as a link to the Rocketeer on Comixology. I'll see if I can find somewhere good for you to get it on in hardcover as well. And I know that you have Hellblazer going right now. Oliver, you just mentioned, is out in trade.
Yeah, and I'll be finishing it up as soon as I get a break between Hellblazer. I'm going to go back and start working on the last 5 or 4 issues of Oliver. So I'm hoping to have that out next year.
Awesome. And I did see Tom being cheeky the other day on Twitter and hinting at more things to come between you guys.
Yes, oh my God! If the thing that we are working on, the pitch we get greenlit for this pitch, it's going to be something. I'm so excited. I'm just like trying not to get my hopes up because we live in uncertain times. But it's such an idea, and I can't wait to talk about it when I can.
Well, knock on wood, and hopefully it goes through, because I've been loving Hellblazer, and I can't wait to see more from you guys.
Well, if you want to have me back on to talk about Hellblazer sometime and go through that, I'd be happy to tell you what I was thinking in my process and stuff like that. We can do that when it's all finished.
Yeah, that'd actually be a cool special episode or something, definitely. So, once I get the rest of those issues in me.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for your time, Darick. I know you're a busy man. I appreciate you stopping in to be part of the show.
It was a lot of fun talking to you.
And that's that for now, you guys. Please like, subscribe, do all the rest of those things. You can find me on Twitter as Sean Sunday Art and on Instagram and Facebook as well. Australian Illustrators, you can find the link in my bio for the Australian Illustrator Discord, and you can find the link to my personal Discord for all my crazy work here. And stay tuned next week, actually Friday this week, but Bizon from Mended Arrow is joining me on Friday to talk about Saga. And that's going to be a really fun episode. So thank you all. Thank you, Darick, and we'll see you next time.